24-year-old in Nashville just pleaded guilty to attempting to blow up a power grid with a drone, and this is the third case like this in 2 years that nobody wants to talk about. We need to have a serious conversation about a pattern that's developing in America's domestic security landscape, and it's time someone connected the dots on what's really happening here. Philippi, a 24-year-old from Columbia, Tennessee, just pleaded guilty to attempting to destroy Nashville's power grid using a drone equipped with explosive materials. Let me break down the facts of this case because the details matter and they reveal something important about the current state of domestic security threats in America. According to federal prosecutors, Philippi spent months planning what authorities described as a devastating attack on Nashville's energy infrastructure. The FBI had been monitoring him since June 2024, when they first learned from a confidential source that he wanted to carry out an attack at a YMCA facility near Columbia, Tennessee. Here's where the case gets particularly interesting from an analysis perspective. Philippi wasn't working alone in his mind. He was actively discussing his plans with what he believed were like-minded individuals. In July, he told a confidential informant that attacking major interstate substations would shock the system and cripple the power grid across multiple locations. The strategic thinking behind his planning is worth examining. In a July text message, Philippi told the informant that if you want to do the most damage as an accelerationist, attack high economic, high tax, political zones in every major metropolis. This wasn't random destruction. This was targeted infrastructure warfare designed to maximize economic and social disruption. From a psychological warfare perspective, what Philippi was describing aligns with what experts call accelerationist ideology. According to the Justice Department, this represents a belief system that calls for the complete collapse of society. The goal isn't just damage, it's systematic destabilization of the foundations that keep communities functioning. The operational details reveal sophisticated planning. Philippi purchased what he believed were active explosive materials from undercover agents. He had selected his target, acquired his equipment, and was literally moments away from launching his attack when federal agents arrested him at the target site in Nashville. His drone was powered up and ready to deploy. But here's what makes this case particularly significant. It's not isolated. This represents the third major case of infrastructure targeting in just 2 years. In 2023, authorities arrested and convicted individuals in Baltimore for similar power grid plots, resulting in 20-year prison sentences. In 2024, another case emerged in New Jersey involving Newark Liberty International Airport. As someone who analyzes patterns and trends, this represents a clear escalation in both sophistication and targeting. These aren't random acts of destruction. They're coordinated attempts to disable critical infrastructure that millions of Americans depend on for basic services. The economic implications of these attacks, had they succeeded, would have been staggering. Power grid failures cascade through every sector of the economy. Hospitals lose life support capabilities, financial systems shut down, transportation networks fail, food distribution breaks down. The ripple effects would have impacted millions of people across multiple states. From a business continuity perspective, companies across America should be paying attention to this pattern. When domestic actors specifically target infrastructure with the goal of economic disruption, this represents a fundamental shift in the threat landscape that requires updated security protocols and contingency planning. The psychological profile emerging from these cases is also worth examining. Philippi conducted what authorities described as a Nordic ritual on the day of his planned attack, including Nordic prayers and discussions about the Norse god Odin. According to the complaint, some individuals participate in these rituals because of historical connections to certain ideological movements. This ritual element reveals something important about the mindset driving these attacks. This isn't impulsive destruction, it's ideologically motivated warfare that includes ceremonial preparation and spiritual justification. The psychological commitment required for this level of planning and ritual preparation suggests deep radicalization and systematic preparation. The investigative response demonstrates the importance of human intelligence in preventing these attacks. The FBI's surveillance operation began in June 2024 and included multiple confidential sources and undercover agents. The investigation required months of careful work to build a complete picture of Philippi's plans and capabilities. What's particularly striking is how close this attack came to execution. Federal agents arrested Philippi at the target site moments before he was prepared to attach the explosive materials to his drone. The timing suggests that authorities waited until the last possible moment to gather maximum evidence while ensuring public safety. The legal proceedings reveal interesting aspects of the justice system's response to infrastructure attacks. Philippi initially pleaded not guilty in January, then attempted to challenge the investigation by claiming due process violations and ineffective counsel. When those challenges failed, he changed his plea to guilty, demonstrating the strength of the federal case against him. The sentencing guidelines for these charges are severe. Philippi faces a maximum sentence of life in prison for attempting to use a weapon of mass destruction and attempting to destroy an energy facility. This reflects the federal government's recognition that infrastructure attacks represent existential threats to community safety and national security. From a homeland security perspective, these cases highlight vulnerabilities in critical infrastructure protection. Power grids, transportation hubs, and communication networks represent attractive targets for individuals seeking to cause maximum disruption with relatively simple tools and planning. The technology aspects of this case are also significant. Philippi planned to use a commercially available drone to deliver his explosive device. This demonstrates how everyday technology can be weaponized for infrastructure attacks, requiring updated security protocols for critical facilities. Business leaders should understand that infrastructure vulnerabilities affect every sector of the economy. When power grids fail, supply chains collapse, communication systems shut down, and financial networks become inoperable. The interconnected nature of modern infrastructure means that targeted attacks can have cascading effects across multiple industries. Educational institutions should use these cases to teach students about critical thinking regarding extremist ideologies and the importance of reporting concerning behavior. The pattern of radicalization that leads to infrastructure attacks often involves months or years of escalating rhetoric and planning that observant community members might notice. Mental health professionals should pay attention to the psychological patterns revealed in these cases. The combination of ideological commitment, ritual preparation, and willingness to cause mass harm suggests specific psychological profiles that might be identifiable through community intervention programs. Law enforcement agencies are clearly adapting their investigative techniques to address this emerging threat pattern. The successful prevention of 3 major infrastructure attacks in 2 years demonstrates improved intelligence gathering and coordination between federal and local authorities. The media coverage of these cases reveals interesting patterns in how domestic security threats are discussed publicly. While international terrorism receives extensive coverage, domestic infrastructure attacks often receive limited attention despite their potential for widespread harm. Community leaders should understand that infrastructure attacks represent threats to everyone regardless of political affiliation or demographic background. Power grid failures affect hospitals, schools, businesses, and homes equally. The impacts don't discriminate based on ideology or identity. The financial costs of preventing these attacks are significant but necessary. The FBI investigations required months of surveillance, multiple undercover operations, and extensive coordination between agencies. However, these costs pale in comparison to the potential economic damage from successful infrastructure attacks. Looking forward, the pattern of infrastructure targeting suggests that critical facility security will require ongoing investment and improvement. Traditional perimeter security may be insufficient against drone-based attacks or other emerging tactical approaches. The international implications of domestic infrastructure attacks should also be considered. Successful attacks on American infrastructure could inspire similar actions in other countries or provide tactical models for international adversaries seeking to destabilize democratic societies. For families and communities, these cases highlight the importance of emergency preparedness. Understanding how to respond to extended power outages, communication failures, and supply chain disruptions can help communities maintain resilience in the face of infrastructure attacks. The pattern emerging from these 3 cases in 2 years suggests that infrastructure targeting may become a preferred tactic for domestic extremists. The combination of maximum disruption potential with relatively simple execution makes critical infrastructure an attractive target for individuals seeking to cause widespread harm. The justice system's response to these cases will likely influence future deterrence efforts. Severe sentences for infrastructure attacks send clear messages about consequences, while the investigative successes demonstrate law enforcement capabilities to potential attackers. Ultimately, these cases represent a new chapter in domestic security challenges that require coordinated responses from law enforcement, business leaders, community organizations, and individual citizens working together to protect the infrastructure that modern society depends on for basic functioning.